This all started with a simple question. Although technology has so many benefits, is it getting in the way of actually learning a language? Let's be honest, we're now dependent on our phones for everything, and there's so much choice overwhelming language learners, from content, online programs, apps, and now AI. I wondered what it's like if you got rid of all of those distractions and just stripped it back to its pre-smartphone days. Is it actually better? To find out, I'm going to challenge myself to remove the technology that I use to learn a language and see what it's like to learn a language like it's 1999.
I like to learn languages by getting lots of exposure through YouTube, podcasts, ebooks, along with a few apps and plugins that just make understanding things a bit easier. So I started using a little notebook to help me with daily tasks and habits, which I really like. But I always found myself reaching for my phone in those in-between moments and never really went beyond that for my language learning. But one book that I read that had a big influence on me was Dopamine Nation, or Generación Dopamina by Anna Lem. And it really made me think about our over-reliance on technology and made me wonder what life would be like without it. So it's time to say goodbye to a few things. Since the iPad wasn't invented until 2010, for the next 7 days, it's going in the box. Goodbye, sweet prince. Low-key hero of language learning. I literally read on it every day. Bone conduction headphones, bye-bye. Quick check, Google Translate wasn't founded until 2006, so I can't use Google Translate. That could be a problem. So I do have 1999's version of Google Translate. Something else that's going to pain me is cancelling my italki lessons and having to find a tutor in person. The comfort of being able to chat with someone from your own home without leaving the house is possibly the biggest change to my routine. Although I'm intrigued to see what an in-person, face-to-face lesson will be like. The benefit of all of this technology is that it can make learning so much more enjoyable. Without this though, this might be a tougher week than I thought. So, I've looked online and I found a Spanish teacher who I can have some face-to-face lessons with. I've booked 2 lessons, one at the start of the week and then one at the end of the week, where I can test myself and see if I can use any of the Spanish that I've learned. So I need to work out how I'm going to be learning Spanish in the meantime. The way I think of it is like this. My brain's programmed to be in English by default at the minute because that's my native language, so I need to reprogram part of it to be in Spanish. I can do that by exposing myself to Spanish content, and as my brain tries to figure out what things mean, it can start to connect the Spanish words and grammar to what I see and hear. So I just need to find a low-tech version. Looking at my bookshelf for what I have to get started, when was this published? Nope. I do have Dune here. So I do actually have the first 3 books. I bought them thinking they were the comics for when I wasn't quite ready to read fiction, but it turned out they were the actual books. Fortunately, I'm now at a level where I can understand a lot of it. So that's what we're going to do. I've already listened to the audiobook for this, so I have a good idea for what I'm going to be reading. Often when you listen to stuff, you get the general meaning, even if you miss a few words. By reading, I'll be able to notice more of those words that I've missed, so I guess that's going to be a good thing. I'm going to go through and look up the words that I don't know. Now, I know that sounds obvious, but on my iPad, that's a very easy process. With a massive dictionary, it's going to take me a lot longer. So I spent about an hour and a bit using Dune to find new words. The big change though is that I fill a lot of my dead time with listening to podcasts or the audio for YouTube videos. So if I'm driving or walking the dog, I'm almost always listening to something. Same for chores around the house. That's what's made picking up the language feel so effortless. Sitting down with a book this way feels more focused, but it's interesting. It feels like so far I can't get quite as much daily exposure because I could be listening to Spanish whilst I'm doing other things.
The book I'm using is going to be a great story, of course, but it's set in a time and place that is very different from where I am. It's like if you learn English from Shakespeare or Sherlock Holmes, people don't actually speak like that. So in the Spanish used in the story, they use the word boss, for example, which is basically a way of saying you. Now, Spanish speakers, I'm not going to get sidetracked into El Bosseo, but if I didn't know much Spanish, I would just keep reading and think that boss was just another word to learn. But actually, boss is used in certain countries or context in Latin America, but not really at all in Spain anymore. Although something interesting is that in Spain Spanish, the use of vosotros, which is basically the plural form of you, which you won't hear in Latin America, comes from vos otros, you others. Anyway, given that I'm learning Spanish from Spain, I just have to be mindful of all the conjugations associated with it aren't that useful to me.
Estamos en la etapa de adolescente.
¿Y cómo es?
Nada. Sí, pues, ¿sabes? Sí, pero sabes, si añades, sobre todo cuando los niños son más pequeños, si añades el factor del cansancio, cuando estás cansada, soy más española. Si me cuesta más, me
Por
cuesta.
supuesto.
¿Sí? Y los niños, cuando estoy, no gritando, porque no grito, pero cuando, ¿sabes? Estoy un poco más alterada. A los niños les oigo decir, mamá está en modo español. She's on Spanish mode.
Y ellos, cuando hay algunos problemas o
Sí, cuando estoy más cansada y me cuesta más. Soy una madre más suave en inglés que en español, sin ninguna duda. ¿Sí? Los ingleses por general sois más educados, ¿sí? Y en español somos más directos. Sí.
Pero eso es muy curioso. Sí, mi familia en Madrid es algo cultural, no es algo que es mal educado. ¿Sí? A veces es mal educado ser un inglés cuando no somos tan directo y no digamos lo que queremos.
Sí,
eso a veces es un poco más mal educado, creo.
Sí, pero sabes, hay los dos, sabes, puedes argumentar positivos y negativos para los dos. Te encuentras que dices cosas en español que nunca las dirías igual en inglés, perdona. ¿Sí? Por ejemplo, sabes, me pones un café, por favor. En inglés nunca diría bring me a coffee, please. Pero en español lo puedes decir.
Pero es la
el
manera...
tono,
eso
exacto, es el tono.
Eso es.
Sí, pero sí, en español somos más directos y somos menos formales. O sea, que invadimos el espacio personal mucho más.
Sí, un poco, sí.
Desde el momento que te presentan a alguien con los 2 besos, rompe esa barrera.
Sí, pero para mí, eso me prefiero.
¿Sí?
Porque en el Reino Unido no tenemos las reglas cuando encuentras a alguien por el primer...
Sí, conoces.
Conoces
a alguien
por la primera vez y también cada momento después de eso. A veces es un poco avergonzoso de no estoy seguro si voy a hacer un brazo, tomar la mano, lo que sea. En España es más fácil, yo sé qué son las reglas y ya está.
Exacto, sí. Y si piensas lo de los 2 besos, incluso pasa entre algunos hombres, si son familia, son los dos. Y ya está, si aquí es mucho más formal.
Random sidebar, given I'm making a video for the internet, it's actually been really useful watching the lesson back and seeing the mistakes I made and also the corrections I got, of course. Just a little hack for you there. What a lovely experience. That was really nice, just chatting with someone in person in Spanish. There's nothing wrong with doing lessons online, but actually just being in the room with someone, just having a chat, just was really nice. I'm not going to turn up someone's door with the camera rolling, but even the bits just turning up, having a bit of chat, should I take my shoes off, meeting the dogs, it was just amazing. It was a really nice experience, and the language came to life a lot more. That's quite eye-opening. Right, sorry in advance for the audio quality. I'm vlogging like it's 2005. So you know that massive comedy dictionary that I've got? Not that helpful. You know, if you ever think of a word
and then you're like, oh, quickly, I'll just look that up on Google Translate. Amazing. I can't do that this week. So I've got to go and buy a dictionary, like a little small mini dictionary, if you will, to help me out. And I'm trying to find where the dictionaries live. Normally, if I'm driving literally anywhere, I will always have some Spanish on. So be that a podcast or, I don't know, the highlights of some YouTube videos that I've saved into a little playlist. And I now can't do that. And it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. So I don't have any other options. I'm just going to drive home, not listening to Spanish. Vale, pues algo que puedo hacer que es gratis y no necesito tecnología de hacerlo es hablar a mí mismo en español. No es un mal uso de mi tiempo de hacerlo cuando estoy conduciendo y prefiero a usar un podcast, pero no puedo esta semana, pero ya está bien. So what's the point of all of this? Why would you want to give up all of the tools that you've got now and go backwards? That's a very good point. Look, certainly it's never been easier to learn a language. There are so many options out there for learners to find what suits them. It's fantastic. By trying this and slowing down, not only am I interested in having a different pace to my learning, but also what it's like and whether it's effective. We are so overstimulated as a species now, and certainly I am conscious of the amount of time that I spend looking at a screen. Maybe there is something to be said for going outside with a book and a notepad and a pen, and a dog, obviously. So what have I been up to? I've been reading Dune and writing down some words. Now, some of these words are words that I already know but want to get into my active vocabulary, or they're just words that I will need to look up. So I'm then going to go through the massive dictionary here and add the English for all of these bits that I picked up. I've avoided taking just a single word because that's not that helpful, and I've just gone for little chunks that I can try and squeeze into a conversation. So I'll go and do those now, and then I'll have some ready for my next lesson and try and squeeze them into a conversation. So I like to learn a language by getting a lot of exposure to it. It's quite a fun way to just pick up the language naturally, and if you like doing other things with your language learning, that's absolutely fine too. But given that I haven't got access to YouTube this week, that's been a bit of a problem. So in order to try and get some more exposure beyond just reading Dune, because it's fine, but I like to do something else with my time, I've got a bit of a plan, and it's got something to do with being up here in my loft. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I believe used to be called a hi-fi. God knows what it's doing here, but there's also a CD section which will become very useful shortly. So this sounds really random, I know, but instead of being able to access podcasts and YouTube, when I was young, I can't remember how, but I got hold of a radio that had a long wave radio station on it. I don't know, you could get long wave radio stations. So this week I haven't got VHS, I haven't got a DVD player. Did they have DVDs in 1999? I don't know. Anyway, there's this old thing in the attic. So I thought I would see if I can get some long wave radio stations on it from Spain to at least get some content I can then try and listen to something. So it might be that I'm going mad this week. So we've got the tuner going, long wave, nothing.
With your permission, The inquiry was told that on the early hours of the second morning of that inspection...
I can't get any Spanish stations, which I had an inkling that might happen, but I had an image of perhaps I'd be able to pick up some Spanish radio stations and sit there with a cup of coffee and just take it all in. But there is a CD part of this somewhere in the loft that I can attach, and so if I can get a CD, like an audiobook or something, then I can at least listen to that. I tried to buy the audiobook for Dune so I can listen, and you can sometimes listen and read to stuff at the same time. Dune is 25 hours long and I couldn't get the CDs for it. So if I get the CD part of this out of my loft, find a library, maybe they'll have CDs in Spanish of like audiobooks and stuff, and then I can listen to them on this. I don't know if it'll work, but we might as well try. So I'm just rocking up to the library and going to see if there's anything I can get to help me with my journey this week.
So if you haven't been to a library before, it's like a bookshop, but everything's free. The only catch is you're not allowed to keep it. I found this book, which I have entirely judged by its cover, which I will read at home just to do some extensive reading, which is basically reading because it's fun. I'm not going to look up the words I don't know, but hopefully I can understand enough of it to work out what's going on. I also hoped, by some stroke of luck, that there'll be some good Spanish audiobooks that I could listen to with the help of the hi-fi, but sadly the options were limited.
If you like the sound of being your very own Indiana Jones and uncovering the meaning of some ancient text, then obviously going into Dune on day one would be mad. But you can always find a beginner's course to get you started. You can work your way up to something like graded readers. Graded readers, if you don't know what they are books made for adults, but they've got a reduced vocabulary. So all of the good ones will have some audio for them, and most of my favorites actually have free audio. Now, some people say that you shouldn't use graded readers because they've got a reduced vocabulary and they don't sound quite how native speakers do. What I would say though is that if you're a learner, you're not going to sound like a native speaker just yet. My feeling is use whatever tools you have at your disposal just to get you started, and then you can move on to different content later. Life is short and you can't worry about everything. So, about to go to my second class. I've been using Dune here, and I've been reading and just noting down some words. My plan was to try and get a few more of these things into my brain beforehand, but life happens. So what I've done is I've taken some of the phrases that I perhaps could maybe try and fit into a conversation, as opposed to stuff that is related to a science fiction universe. It's probably not quite so helpful for this conversation I'm about to have. So I've noted down some of the phrases here. I'm actually going to leave my book open so I can use these in the class, hopefully, and cheat a little bit. But then, yeah, see if that can get into my active vocabulary. So fingers crossed. So the road to class was closed, and I got sent on this crazy diversion, which has made me super late.
Sí, encender.
Ah, por supuesto. Eso es la problema que tengo ahora, es que puedo encender bien, pero muchas veces hay palabras como entender.
Yep.
Tengo que encontrar en algunos puntos para
porque
empezar.
no las usas, y si no lo usas,
eso es.
¿Sabes? No es que las pierdas, pero se retroceden.
Eso es.
Dentro del cerebro, ¿sí?
¿No son listo cuando quiero usarlos?
¿Sí?
O las?
Puedo, porque entonces el mensaje que me has enviado hoy, ¿sí? Entonces, para corregirte, importa, tengo, sí, si no te importa.
Haz lo que quieres.
Sí, entonces, vale. Entonces, tú me has dicho, hay una diversión.
Sí.
¿Qué significa diversión en español?
Enjoy, ¿no?
Exacto, sí.
Vale.
Sí, entonces, hay un desvío.
Desvío,
Sí, un desvío, a diversion. No sé cómo ha acabado siendo diversion en inglés, ¿sí? Pero sí. Y en español no somos tarde, llegamos.
Sí.
¿Sí? Entonces, ¿cómo dirías?
Llegar.
Dirías siento en el infinitivo llegar tarde. O sea que sí, lo tienes que adaptar un poco. Pero La ventaja de haber dado clase durante mucho tiempo es que tienes, ¿sabes? Primero, estás muy acostumbrada a preparar clases y se vuelve como segunda naturaleza, ¿sí?
Vale.
Y tienes un banco de ejercicios que puedes usar o adaptar con rapidez.
¿Hay
¿sí?
algunos temas que ni siquiera figuraban en diferentes tipos de examen o qué?
No, suelen ser los mismos, pero con, ¿sabes? Los diferentes exámenes a lo mejor tienen un poco más de valor el examen escrito que el oral. O sea, que es un poco de darles más de lo que necesitan para lo que tiene más puntos. ¿sí?
Vale.
Generalmente sí. Los estudiantes más que nada suelen necesitar práctica para el examen oral.
Vale.
Porque es la disciplina que es más difícil de practicar cuando tienes una clase de 30 estudiantes.
Vale.
¿sí? Y también les ayuda mucho con el examen escrito.
Vale,
¿sí?
¿Y vas a ser sometida a algunas más llamadas para estudiantes nuevas en este...?
Sí.
Vale.
Entonces, tengo mucha suerte y tengo lista de espera, o sea que simplemente, ¿sí?
Vale.
Sí. Entonces, y me encantan los libros, ¿sí? Entonces, ¿sabes? Algo a lo que me he tenido que adaptar es hacer mucho de la enseñanza en línea con recursos que están creados para dar clases en línea. Pero todavía utilizo muchos libros. ¿sí? Entonces, pero sí, estaba pensando en eso y se me ha olvidado de sacarte el libro.
Gracias. Mi caso es lo mismo. A mi alrededor me hallaban, hay un montón de libros en todos lados, todos los rincones.
Sí, me encantan los libros, tanto para leer como los libros para enseñar. Sí, pero es eso, lo que dices tú, es crear ese hábito.
Eso es.
Y crear un hábito necesita consistencia, ¿sí? Hasta que se convierte.
Sí.
Y es eso, tener la disciplina de ponerlo en tu agenda, ¿sí? Y de hacerlo.
So, I'll be honest, when I started this challenge, I expected to get to the end and say, well, it's just as well that we don't have to do all of this to learn a language. We can use all of this technology and it's all just much easier now. End of video, like, comment, subscribe. But honestly, it's been really nice. In a world where there is an overwhelming amount of choice and a desire to do as much as we possibly can in every minute, slowing down a little and just focusing on one thing at a time, I found surprisingly powerful. It's like I'm trying to get as much as I can out of that one resource instead of trying to get just 1% from a mountain of stuff that gets, suggested to you online. Technology and choice are great, obviously, but I suspect more time with a single resource is going to cement the words and grammar that you see there so much more than just passing over it and moving on to the next thing. Now, I'm glad that I'm going to be going back to the 21st century now, but I genuinely feel like I've learned a few things along the way, and I hope that you have too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.